Morning, everybody. Morning. Making that summer day count, a little bit longer day, a little bit longer sunshine. Finally here in Colorado, we've got some warmer days. They've been really rainy here. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the summer. Got some late summer season races coming up. Yeah, just kind of getting ready for the year, making the fall happen. What up, Daniel?
What up, Andy? Doper suck. Pass heads rule. Let's go. Sorry for interrupting.
People are rolling in. No, I was just rambling.
Keep rambling, bro. Ramblings could be useful. Be a sponge. You can learn something all the time.
Yeah. Lately I've been trying to time fitness a little bit. Back in the day, what we would do is when I was preparing for races, we would get in the best shape possible about 6 weeks out. And this would be for any race, whether it would be Hawaii or the Olympics or Alcatraz, whatever, Clearwater before it was Vegas, and now it's in Finland, the Half Ironman World Championships. We would try to get in the best shape possible until about 6 weeks out. And then we tried to work on the specific demands of the race. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my fall races, is get into some really good shape and then look specifically at the race and see what the demands are physically, and then heat and weather wise, what those demands are, wetsuit, non-wetsuit, hills, no hills, heat, cooler, if it's typically windy or not, and then the length and duration. So just trying to get in some good shape until basically August 1st, and then we'll try to go real specific. And yesterday on the track, I don't know about you guys, do you guys ever try so hard that you whine? I was after the workouts yesterday, I just made fun of myself because I want to say on the bike I whined about a dozen times, and then on the run I whined about 30 times, just because I needed to stay focused. And the whining was like that kind of whining. Do you guys ever push yourself that hard where you whine? I would love to know. I do. Yeah. And it's kind of like my reminder of I'm at the brink of what I can handle, and I can just keep going. I don't necessarily have to go harder or faster, but I have to stay in the whiny zone. And it's quite painful, but you can hang on to it for a long time, which is interesting because people will often go up. They'll take the throttle, they'll pin it, and they'll get to that level. And then once they touch it, then they're like, oh, that's maximal, I'm off. And then they'll fade. Whereas I think a lot of, obviously, physical adaptations happen in this place where, the mantra is, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So that's really challenging. If you're whining in that zone, it's super challenging for your body and your mind. Obviously it's challenging your body because your body is saying stop, but your mind can either listen or ignore. And the longer you can stay in that space, that's where mental strength comes from. And there's no program that Daniel or any of our coaches could write to get you to do those things. It has to come through experience, and it's in the doing. So
question, Andy.
Go ahead, Pat.
How I get to that point in racing every race, okay? But how often a week do you get to that point in training?
Okay, so it's really valuable to get there in races. but if you're not touching it in training, you can only get there in racing, then I would have you race more. To try
Well,
to get into that
I guess
space.
I
For
have a
me-
coach and I just don't get those kind of workouts where I go up to that 100, 110% point. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so Andy, go, and then I'll jump in.
Okay, so I try to get there probably at least 3 times a week, one in each discipline.
okay.
Yeah, there's the whiny and then there's the grindy. And I'm definitely on the grindy side where I'll touch grindy 3 times a week. And I whine about once a week per discipline. But to get to that whiny spot, it's like, it's hard. So,
Andy,
Yeah, go ahead.
you're whiny. That's still just around grindy, just above it. It's not much more than that. So like
Correct.
the 110 is a little much there, Pat, when we're talking about whiny, right?
Okay.
Like, yeah. And it's really dependent on really you. Yeah. How long you can stretch it out, and kind of like so many things come into factor. Like, Pat, you're a young buck, so you could probably get there a little more than Andy. But as like Andy and I age, it's harder to do it more. Just it takes a bigger toll on your body. So
I'm
that's
not a young buck.
yeah, I know. I was joking.
Okay.
Yeah, I was joking.
Yeah. Okay.
But like, so for like, as athletes get older, it's harder to go there more. It's just the
Got it.
recovery time takes longer. So that's maybe why your coach is programming you that way. But there is value still going there. And like we just talked about this the other day. Like, and like Andy said, if you're not going there in training, you really can't go there regularly in racing unless you race every week. So Potts, I don't know if you remember when we did this years ago, I put together this development program for USAT. And part of that program was they had young kids, like teenagers, like 20 somethings, and they raced every week. And the idea was every week they were racing. That was like how they were getting their stimulus, getting better. And we kind of like weeded kids out at that point too.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's not this like all out effort either. It's like threshold-ish, right, Andy? Like threshold-ish. And you're just like, let's just hold on and hold on.
True threshold will get you there.
Yes.
What is true threshold? It's basically the maximum effort you can hold for an hour at a really, and just being 100% honest with yourself.
Yeah, and it's really hard for most people to do because we don't train that way enough. At the end of the day, for I'd say everyone in this thread right now, right? Your ability to hold high is less deterministic of your success than your ability to hold medium and low. So holding sub threshold and bringing what we call your floor up is so much more important to your success than holding here. You do this so you can work here, but this is where it's at for you. And that doesn't mean like zone 1, 2 hanging out. No, it's grindy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Provide a little context.
it's a little once a week, 3 times a week, 1 per discipline for me. And the way we talk to ceilings and floors is when I can push up, it's not that they kind of move together. There's a little synchronicity in there. So when I'm bumping up in like that true effort, the true no lying to yourself, this is like your maximal sustainable repeatable pace where you get whiny. Because if it's true max, then I kind of go silent, and there's no auditory effect at all because it's such a short burst. But that grindy whiny speed, what that does is it pulls your floor up by lifting your ceiling up, and they're together. And the necessary piece here isn't, it's pushing and getting that space, but it's the floor that's being influenced the most. And it's the best way for me to bring up my floor.
Mhm. Okay, yeah.
Cool. But if you're still not sure about your training, we know a few great coaches out there.
Next season,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just joking
yeah,
with you, just pulling your chain a little bit.
got it.
It looks like we have a quorum here. Good question, Pat. If you guys have more questions, just raise your hand and ask. Otherwise, throw it in the chat. Potts, we were supposed to talk about, I think, bike today, like bike technique, bike stuff, bike whatever. I thought we could focus a little more on biking and racing.
Okay.
And then kind of like the demands and like everything from kind of equipment to how to prepare for it, and like kind of like the key things when you think about your biking in a race that determine success, stuff like that. Anything else you want to cover? We got a question about running up hills. I know there's a song about that. I'm running up that hill, right? I don't know the next lyrics, but my kids do. Connor, that's very similar actually to biking, so we'll talk about that too. That just came up. Before I do that, can I do a couple quick logistics, Andy, just to knock them out?
Do it.
All right, quick. We've had a lot of questions about World Championship, Marshall jerseys, all stuff like that. Don't worry, have no fear. You're going to get your jerseys. This is specifically for the Spaero team and guys out there. We have a production slot available, so they will definitely come before Finland, I've been told. The store should open today. There's 40 SP1 jerseys, so if you're in a kits, so if you're racing in the World Championship, you'll get first dibs at them, and then everyone else will get the rest. We're gonna release a full lineup of clothes, not just race kits too. Cycling jerseys and everything else. They're pretty slick. I think this is awesome. This World Championship jersey we made because we're putting Marshall's logo on it in a couple spots. So then in a lot of ways, you know, he'll get to race with us at our best. And I think that's pretty amazing and something he'd really be pumped about. So rock on for that. Getting ahead of myself now, but team applications for all of our teams will go out right around September 15th, and we'll have information about those before that. We have 2 meetings before that and lots of emails. So look out for that. Oregon 70.3. I think there was an informal group chat set up. I'm not sure yet. Andy and I will set one up. We're still working out the logistics, but plan for on Saturday, get together, swim and run or bike or something like that. Maybe a breakfast, team tent set up, team photographer out there taking pictures, and just a lot of awesome good times. Camps for next year. Our first camp will be in February. It'll be during the time period, February 1st to 11th, sometime during that period, for all groups, different times for each group. We'll announce that right around the team announcement in September, maybe before. And that's about it. I have a couple questions on my own to go through, but let's get into some topics here. Again, if you have questions, let me know. Potts, let's just answer these questions first, and then we'll go into what we want to talk about.
Okay.
How do you run uphill? Do you attack or hold the pace?
Okay, so I work with a youth running team, and the way that we attack hills on the team is the same way that we ride hills as like AP racing and way that we coach hills on the bike. And that's basically as you're running into the hill, you don't change your pace at all. There's no inflection of effort or cadence change. There's nothing that changes for the bottom third. You just run in. Now, this can be a little daunting because if you're literally next to somebody and they don't run the same way, they don't attack the hill the same way, you feel like they're putting a major surge on you because they are running the bottom hill as hard as they can. So you don't change anything for the bottom third. The middle third, you build, and it's just a building effort. You slightly increase your cadence, and then the effort meter goes, and you kind of get a little grindy on it. And then the top third is when you push and then crest. So the push and crest on the hill, the crest lasts probably, depending on the hill, anywhere between 5 to 8 seconds. So the way that you break the hill up, you have to incorporate the crest, which makes the hill longer. But so the bottom third is, it looks a little bit farther than it really is if you were just to take the true top of the hill. And then the middle third is a little bit farther up. It's more like 3/5. You get up that hill to like, I guess, yeah, what is that? Like you want to get to, yeah, like 3/5 of the hill. And then the top third of the hill, you're really cresting and coming up and over, press. And that's where the breakaway happens. So if you were to compare it to how another person runs a hill, there's a gap that they put on you on the bottom third. You catch and go equal to them on the middle third, because they're just sustaining, they're just sustaining. And then when they fade, you surge, and then that surge is like a break a little bit in their confidence, but where there's actual true separation is at the top and the crest, just like you would ride on the bike. And you see this a lot in the Tour de France. If you have the opportunity to watch anybody ride when it's not the final mountain, they'll ride up and over, and if they want to get away, they go click, click at the top, and then they up and over, and they go down just as hard as they're going up. That's what we teach.
Yeah, you want to mess with someone or get away from someone, think of it like a mile or two after the top of the hill is when you're actually going. And you think of it that way, and you're gone, like almost every time.
And it's like, oh my gosh, Daniel, he's such a great climber. And you're not necessarily any stronger than like someone who's of equal strength as you. You are tactically smarter. And this is a tactic versus a tactic. Used to race hills, and I train this way too. So specifically on hill repeats on the run, and also hill repeats on the bike, I go up and over the hill, and then it makes my descent a little hairy sometimes, but you get better at it.
Yeah. All right, next one, Oceanside. If you have follow-up, Connor, let us know. Oceanside or Galveston? I'll start with this one, Andy. Whichever one works better for you and your life. That's the simple answer. If you have to pick between the two, Oceanside definitely. It's a better race. Personal opinion. If we're thinking about teams and like where we're gonna be, chances are we'll have more people at Oceanside than Galveston. That typically is just what happens. I don't know. Andy, you've raced all of them. I think Oceanside's a better race. I've seen them, so that's just my opinion.
Oceanside is a better race. Galveston can be faster. It can also be slower if it's a major crosswind, because you get like it messes with your head, not necessarily your skills and your body. So I think I've been like 343 in Galveston and 345 or 346 in Oceanside. So we're talking minutes. Galveston's a little quicker. That's all, because it's a with current swim. The run is windy. The run, like if you have a family and you're into surfing, go to Oceanside. If you have a family and you're into like going to a water park, go to Galveston.
Although there's a good water park, like with Wake Park, wave riders, not too far from Oceanside too.
Yeah, I also Oceanside will be colder.
Yeah,
Oceanside's a little colder, a little bit unpredictable with like that marine layer they call it. All that means is cold rain, and
but you do get to swim with seals instead of oil tankers, so that's cool.
The water tastes about the same.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
All right. 2 questions. I'll start them. You can finish them if you want. Where do you recommend to stimulate hills in the Midwest? Lots of bridges. No. Big gear work. You can do big gear work to stimulate hills. So throw it in a bigger gear, a little slower cadence. That's probably the best way, to be honest. You're looking. So there's technique to hills that you can kind of get from that. It's a little hard. And then there's just power requirements, which you can get from big gear work or high
Yeah,
cadence work for that matter.
Yeah, big gear work where you're upright. So it is less about going fast, more about the power. If that's the ask of the day. You like in racing, it's going fast. It's not, nobody cares how much power you push.
Yeah. And then last question, and then next, that was a great segue, by the way, for what we're going to talk about. Gearing for Ironman Mount Tremblant. Lori, completely depends on you. It's a really hard question to answer. Because it depends. Most people, I would say, like an 11:28, 11. What do they do now? 11:30, right? Or 11:31. Like that would be a great rear gear. And then I don't know what you have on the front either, right? Like you could be running a 55 for all I know, or like a 52.
52:36, Lori. Does that sound right for you? Or are you 53:39?
Oop, you're on mute.
There we go. I have a 52 on the front.
52 and then drop to a 36 or a 39?
I don't know what I have on the back. It's more flat type gearing because I've had the same gearing on it since I did 70.3 Michigan, which is fairly flat.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely a real hill, and you'll want to keep real momentum in terms of the internal compass. Obviously, the momentum in terms of inertia and the physical movement will slow down in the hills. But if the gearing is taking you so far out and such a big departure from, and you can't marry your effort to your gearing, that's where like hiccups happen. You probably have, they come 52:39s?
They do, yeah.
Okay, you might have a 52:36. And if you have a 28 in the back, I think that's a lot of, you'll have plenty of gears. 30 in the back, it's plenty.
Okay.
Yeah. Lori, if you send me a message, like there's I could send you the gear ratio you need. So if you divide like the front gear by the back, you can look at the course and it'll give you a better idea. I have a pretty good gear ratio here. That's the easier way to do it. Just send me a note and I'll try and dig that up for you.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So Andy, that's a good segue. Okay. So when we talk about racing, right? There's a lot of things that go into racing. We see a lot of people, they're looking at like, what do you say? They look at the trees instead of the forest a lot of times, right? Like what's important, or like, very like, oh, I need this aero helmet that flips up like this instead of, oh, I need this power, or I need to flatten the course. I need pressure on my pedals. So can we go through like when you're racing, okay? What are the most important things you're thinking of, first of all, in terms of mechanics?
So I think I'm going to take this question as strategy versus tactics in implementing a race plan. So I have a strategy going into every race. The strategy is based off of what I'm bringing into the race in terms of my fitness. What are my numbers right now? How has my training been going? Am I 100% healthy? That's probably the biggest factor. Number two is I'll know the contours of the race. Is this a with current swim with a wetsuit? Then I'm going into let's say a flat bike and a flat run. We're going to go with that scenario. So it's a wetsuit with current swim, flat bike, flat run. So for me, what I would do is I'd say, okay, I don't need to, if the harder I push on the swim, there's less return because I'm already going with a group. So it's more about momentum and just like cadence. Then on the bike, it's about like being disciplined in the moment. And then I will break that ride up specifically into thirds. I'll know, okay, flat bike ride. I know for me, based off my power, I'll be out on the bike course for 2 hours. So I'll break that 2 hours into 3 40-minute segments, and I will chunk it. And so I have to stay focused within 40 minutes only. And then when that 40 minutes is up, there's a little reassessment and then a new 40 minutes. And then on the run, I have kind of a generic run plan where it's like, establish my pace by mile 2, just run till mile 8, build to mile, like it's a strong build for 3 miles till mile 11, and then it's go again, quit complaining, go again, nobody cares, push more, push, go faster, go again for 2 miles. That's kind of my plan, usually on a flat run. So that'll be the strategy. And what I'll do in the moment, and then once I have the strategy built, then I take all the tactics, like how to ride hills, how to swim with a high cadence, and how to stay disciplined in an aero position. All the small things that I work on in training tactically, and the discipline that the tactics take, and I apply them to my strategy. So that's like, tactics are what you're doing in the moment. Strategy is your plan. And so I will break them up into 2 different things, and I chunk it. So I'm not getting overwhelmed of like, oh, I hope I have enough energy with 2 miles to go on the run when I'm literally hitting like the 3rd buoy on the swim. That's those thoughts. I've done that before. It's not great. Those days don't turn out awesome. Have you guys ever done races where you'll start the run, it'll be a 2-lap run, and you'll come out of transition and you see mile 7, mile 8, and you're like fresh as a daisy. You're like, wow, I know I'm going to feel this good at mile 8. And then you don't feel anywhere near that you felt when you first saw it. So that will be like a reminder of, like, I'm not in mile 8. I'm at mile 1. I'm at mile 1.5. And you have to be in that moment. So it is a lot about being in the moment. Does that help?
Absolutely. Helped me.
Yeah.
I think you kind of hit on some of these things a little bit. A lot of, actually, let me digress just a little bit for a second. When we've talked about this before, right? People are always like, and we had this talk the other day in one of our group chats about equipment. Oh, should I get carbon wheels? Should I get aero wheels? Should I get this? Should I get that? Right? How am I going to get faster? Right? People changing stuff the day before. What would you say for let's use the bike, because we know on the swim, you just got to be in a hoop wetsuit. For the bike, what is,
Nailed it.
yeah, I do. Okay. Top 3 gear recommendations for people for a race or training for that matter.
All right. So this is
You want to spend money for speed because that's what's important, right?
Yeah, this kind of changed a little bit over the years. You know, I do think, so I'm going to say, all right, this is like unbiased, trying to go as unbiased as I can here. All right, so I would say the right bike matters the most. And why is it the right bike? Because all the bikes are pretty fast. And the reason I'm saying is it's got to be the right bike for you, so you can dial in your position, right? If it's an unadjustable fixed position, and as you change and develop and modify your strengths and weaknesses through training and evolution and aging and experience, you need to be on the right size and fit on your bike. It needs to be adjustable so you can move with the bike. So your fit is probably the most important thing, and that fit coincides with the adjustability of your bike. All right. If you have a bike and you're like, dude, this is the bike, then it's your fit, and then go look at your fit. Number 2, I'd say, in terms of a drag coefficient, I'm going to go with, I used to think this was overrated, and now I think it's underrated, and that's your apparel. I used to think your apparel was super overrated. I was like, whatever. Like, let's rock and roll. Like, it doesn't matter what's against my body. But as you look at the way that air moves around your body, you need to be in the right kit, because it covers. So you think about on the bike, 20% of the drag is coming from the frame and the bars and the wheels. 80% is coming from you. But if you can make that 80% as sleek as possible in terms of drag, the way that, like, the air, where the air is hitting you, how it's attaching to you, and how it's detaching from you, that's your biggest drag. So I'd look at the right kit, and having it being an aero kit. I think that's worth the extra $100, like $180 versus $280. I think you can get a lot faster with that too, in that $280 or $300 suit.
Everyone has Spaero suits.
I know. Let's go. And then lastly, I would look at your helmet. The way your helmet fits on your head, in terms of the actual fit, is going to protect you when you fall. That's probably the most important thing. It's kind of like insurance in that regard. You don't really think about what you need. You need it until you need it, and then it's the most important thing. So is it protecting you in the right spots? Like, if you have a helmet and you're like, this is my helmet, and it fits you like this, and that thing's not going to help your game when you fall, right? So, like, it's got to fit the right way. It's got to fit on your head. And then, is it attaching to you in the right spot? So that's when you can do a rudimentary, like, you don't need to go to aero tunnel. You can kind of look at your profile, get someone to take your profile picture. Am I in the frame?
Yeah, you're good.
Look at your profile picture. Are you attached? Or is there a tail to the helmet? Is the helmet wide, but it's attaching at your shoulders? Is it narrow? And then there's a little turtling happening with your shoulders. I've been to a bunch of wind tunnels. I've tried different things. I can't say for certain that one thing works for everybody, because the data certainly doesn't prove that. But there are some things that, just like, a visor is faster than glasses. A little bit of a tail that touches your back is faster than nothing. Although if you have, like, literally nothing, and it like truncates right at the nape of your neck, then that can be fast if you have a flat position, and where your hands are. There's a lot.
That's a lot of information. A lot of information.
A lot there.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I add to that? Based
Sure.
on conversations we've had, I would say the things nowadays that are, we talk about this all the time, table stakes. Like, it's not even a question. Like, I would say fit is a table stake, right? And that's a constantly adjusting fit too. It's not like you just get your fit once a year. You're always looking at your fit, because as you ride more, your comfort level goes up, your elasticity or your ability to stretch goes up more. Like, Potch, from the beginning of the year to the end, I look completely different on a bike as we go, because I get more and more comfortable over time. So that's a given. I think for all of you out there, Power Meter is a given. It's such a good tool. It used to be like, hey, we'll train you any way you want, which we can still do, but it's just an invaluable tool. And the last thing, which is becoming almost impossible not to do nowadays, is electronic shifting. Given. And it's less for during a race, because you hear people say, oh, you don't really shift that much in a triathlon during a race. And some races you do, some you don't. It's more about during training and making your life way more enjoyable and being more efficient on a bike. You remember when I did that test once? I did like background. My car broke down about, I don't know, 160 miles from my house, and I had to go pick it up because I got to ride back home. So I just rode back to get it, and I had nothing to do the whole ride. So I counted shifts 1 hour at a time. And I think I averaged like 560 shifts an hour. And it was really undulating. It was down in Larkspur. It was from Colorado Springs to a little past Fort Collins. And so 550 shifts. If you have aero bars and you're going from, and let's say you're climbing over, you're going from here to here, 550. Oh my God, that's horrible. So it just makes your life a little easier. You stop at a light, you don't do this and then get the chain crap that happens. So those are my table stakes. If you're looking at getting a new bike, you pretty much have to get those things, but you should be looking into those things. Sound good, Potts?
Yeah, the shifting thing is like there's an app for that. They usually the shift
Yeah.
they will tell you how much you're shifting. You're shifting way more than you think you are.
Yeah, way more. Yeah, I'm not that advanced with apps and stuff.
You're not.
Right, yeah. All right, so I got a couple other things about racing, okay? And it comes up in some courses more than others. Like we'll think about Wisconsin, Andy, because this is where you and I talked about all the time. When you're riding in a course like called Ironman Wisconsin, and we talk about it in other places, you want to flatten the course. So that means having really good consistent pressure on the pedals. So Wisconsin's a course that undulates a lot, goes up and down. So Connor, this goes back to your question earlier. It was running, but for biking, you might have to give it a little more going up a hill so that the hill doesn't feel as big. If you can roll a hill, you're not stomping on years ago I did Chattanooga and like people are stomping on the pedals going up, really over giving it. But like if you give it just a little more, it feels like you're just riding flat. So you want to do your best to it's steady. Like here's a good example. I was driving the car yesterday and there was this guy and he would speed up, no joke, to about 100, 110 miles an hour. And then we'd go to a hill and he'd slow down to like 80, or he'd get to some cars and he'd have to slam on his brakes. And I just kept it steady at an undisclosed speed. And I kept on catching him and going past him and then going back and going past him. And I kept it steady the whole way. That's how you should think about riding your bike. It's not this herky jerky speed stuff. Steady with a little bit of acceleration to match the hill or match whatever, and a little bit to come back.
I think about that all the time when I drive the car.
Yeah.
It's just I think about riding with momentum.
Yep.
And then if you listen to really great cyclists, they're like, oh, the hill wasn't so bad. And you're like, what? Are you out of your brain? And they're like, oh, well, we just the power was so high, it didn't feel that steep. 12% gradient wasn't really overwhelming because the power was so high, we flattened it out. And they will say these things, and this is what they're talking about. The faster you can go, the less steep the hill is. Like, this is where you'll think about, I'll think about like, all right, so I'll have these good times up a hill and I'll ride the hill and I try to find the best way to ride the hill. And the faster I go, it almost becomes easier. You're pushing a little bit bigger of a gear. The watts are certainly high, don't get me wrong. But there's not as many sticky spots, and you roll through like these smaller sections that you used to think like at a slower pace, they would affect you, but at a higher rate, they're just not even there. They're not part of the profile because you rode past them before you had a chance to even change gear. And we have this hill in Colorado Springs, and the faster I go up it, it's super hard, but it's almost like the easier it feels. Okay, so like, all right, I'm gonna give you an example. It's Cheyenne Canyon is the hill. Okay, and there are a few good kickers on that canyon. I don't know if anybody ridden the hill in that group? Maybe Chris has.
AJ.
Okay.
Brian has.
Okay. So I'll tell you. So like, I remember I go up the hill at like, if you push 250 watts for me, it's like, oh, this is a long hill. It's like 25, right?
And you get that one, and then that other one. Oh, and you're like, this is the end.
280, it's like, oh, this is grindy. 300 is like, this is hard. 330, 350, it's like, oh my God, this is really hard. I pushed it, like my best up that hill is 393. I got up to top. I mean, I was blown to bits, but the faster I went, or the harder I pushed, the faster I went, my time just went, it just shot down. It wasn't like, there is a thing like as diminishing returns when you're riding your bike. Like, oh, you push, let's say, if I'm pushing 200 and then I'm pushing 250 and I'm more or less going the same time, like, okay, just move through the hill as best you can. But this hill, if you push more and you like, it can have the time you're on that hill.
Yeah.
And so I think I got up in like 16 and change. Like I was flying up that thing. And there were probably a half a dozen sections versus when I go 100 watts less that I didn't even notice. Like they were not a factor in my brain. I mean, mostly because my eyes were rolling into the back of my head and I could spell my name if you spotted A-N-D, but as a.
All right. You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. And that hill is the best example of it if you've ever ridden it. It's world class. You guys should come to our Colorado Springs camp and check it out next summer. Okay, enough of the plugs. Okay, so Tosh, you got anything else you want to talk about? Because I got one last thing that goes on with this stuff.
I think if there's one takeaway today, there's been a lot of little nuggets here. So hopefully, I'm happy with passing on the nuggets that we passed on.
Okay, if anyone has other questions, let us know. Otherwise, here's my little nugget for the day. And we were talking about this the other day, Andy, and I was talking to my kids about it. And it deals with racing and bike training and run training and swimming, whatever you want to do in life. If you don't do it in training, you'll never do it in racing. Sorry, you just won't. Pat, you've done it in training. If you've done it in racing, I know you have. No magic happens on race day. So, and when things get tough and difficult, right? Really hard, like, oh, it's so hard. That's when the growth happens. That's when you get better, right? Like, what is it? Like no growth happens without adversity, or if it doesn't challenge, it doesn't change you, right? So like when things get tough for you, things get really hard. What I've been saying lately is now, right now. It's not next time I'm going to get to it. Next time I'll run more. Next time I'll push harder. Next time I'll do another interval. It's now I'm going to do it. So every time you're out there and it gets hard, think now, not next. So because on race day, it's now. So do it now. That's what I got.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now it's time to end. So if there's no other questions, we'll catch you guys later. Post up in all of our group chats or send us an email or a text and we'll answer your questions all day, every day.
See some of you guys in Oregon.
Yes, we will. Look out for a note about that too. I'm still trying to work out my airfare. I looked last night and it was like, I don't know, $1,500. So I'm trying to find a different way to get there. And I just got back from Oregon yesterday. So I'm working that out. Yeah. So
okay.
See you there.
I wanted to, I'm gonna answer a few hitters. Ready?
Yeah.
Calf sleeves. If you can swim with them, they're way faster. I've been doing this. Everybody, I've been doing this for like 15 years, since 2007. If I can sneak them under my wetsuit, they're way faster. And the calf sleeves are getting better, so they're getting faster. But yes, you should wear calf sleeves if you can underneath your wetsuit. Single ring. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I do. You're taking away a front derailleur. You're taking away like some potential mechanical things that can happen. It's definitely a more aero, and there are enough gears. I was worried that like even living in Colorado with the hills, I was worried that I'd struggle because I didn't have enough gearing. But I rode it in California when we went to camp, and I was like, I don't think there are enough gears here. And then I started getting good shape. I'm like, okay, there's enough gears. Quit one.
The other thing when you think about going single gear is having it on both ends. So it's not just having enough to go up a hill, it's having enough to handle like false flat downs because you don't want to gear out. So be real careful if you go single gear to look at it. And then I had a question about which calf sleeves. We're gonna have some available for you guys pretty soon through Hoop that are crazy fast. We just don't have them in the US right now, but in the next, say, I've been saying this for a couple weeks now, 2 to 4 weeks, they'll become available. They're really fast. Otherwise, we might have a pair from Compressed Sport that are pretty quick too, really quick. They're new ones they just came out with.
Yeah, the compressed sport ones are good. The I think Arrow Weenies make a good one, but I think the 316 ones from Hoob are what are testing the fastest right now.
Yeah. So give us a couple weeks and you can have them. You won't have them for your race this weekend, Connor. Sorry. Yeah, you'll be okay though. Yeah, word.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Mr. Potts. Pat
Thanks.
in
Good.
Oregon.
Yeah. See you there.
Later.
Twos.
Twos.